regulations whenever they want it. The app gives weight to that argument because right now justices are like, that doesn't make any sense because we can actually evaluate further consequences and we haven't seen this in the past. The app is the regulation that West Virginia is arguing will happen in the future, leads to justices flipping and being like, okay, maybe this argument actually has some standing, and then the ruling in favor.
So is it just like, so what do you mean? Why is it specific to the app? Why don't other EPA regulations apply to that?
Two things. One, we think time frame, like literally this argument just happened. They just said it. Obviously, there's a time frame differential between oral arguments recently happening and other regulations in the past. Second, we think it shows how the counterplan, the app is the court action, which obviously gives weight to the argument because the justices are literally like, oh my God, now we have to uphold this regulation, proves there's actually no stopgap. There's no stopgap against other regulations in the future.
Okay, sure. What evidence says that EPA authority is compromised by the ruling?
I guess the Dreesen and the Mullen evidence indicates that by non-delegation, which is what is up for grabs in this case, would be devastated if we were for West Virginia over the EPA because it takes away that regulatory authority.
No, where does it say that? It says that non-delegation might be important for regulation.
That is what
then it says Biden's committed to. Okay, the sunsets counterplan. How does it solve the F?
Again, it puts judicial sunsets to the app where every 25 years, the Supreme Court reviews the decision and then determines whether or not they want to revise, alter, or revise, get rid of it, or
it's not an official ruling, correct?
I'm confused what the question is. Yes,
the counterplan is not a court ruling.
The counterplan puts a sunset on the court ruling.
Okay, but it doesn't rule on the. Does not actually.
To clarify, it is a ruling, but the ruling is revisited later. I.e., justices come together. Our evidence indicates it's more politically popular.
So it is a ruling. How is it different than the AF if it's a ruling?
Because the AF is obviously durable. The AF will not be sunsetted. We specify quantitative.
Okay, so this counterplan competes by saying like in 25 years it might be rolled back. Is that inaccurate?
It's not that it might be rolled back, but just like in 25 years, justices will come back and revisit.
Okay, and that's how. Okay, the NEPA counterplan. Why does the court listen to? What precedent is there for listening to EPA impact statements?
Two things. One, the EPA impact statement is binding, so they like fiat obviously solves the say no argument.
It's not binding to the court.
Fiat solves this argument because we adopt the vessel term identified if it can be consistent with the recommendations of the assessment.
So does the counterplan fiat the court adheres?
We think the impact statement will be binding.
You think the court will listen to like a statutory impact statement?
Doesn't matter if they want to or not. It's fiat, man.
Okay, but sorry, we're taking it up, right? Status of the off.
The status quo is always logical option.
Also a new app.
Also a new app.
Give me condo.
Stop prep 710. Cool. Sending it out. Jacob's going to send some perm texts, but other than that, everything else should be in the doc. Should be sent. Okay. Is everyone good for an order? Yes, no, maybe. Okay. Case, advantage 1, advantage 2. T protection. Con counterplan. States counterplan. Incentives counterplan. The K. The sunbursts counterplan. The guidance counterplan. The NEPA counterplan. The EPA DA, EPA DA. BizCon. Court politics.
Can you do
Jacob.
that one more time? Sorry.
Yeah. Case, advantage 1, advantage 2. T protection. Con counterplan. States counterplan. Incentives counterplan. K. Sunbursts counterplan. Guidance counterplan. NEPA counterplan. EPA DA. BizCon DA. Court politics. Jacob sent perm texts for sunbursts,
I will send.
NEPA, and guidance.
I
I'll
will
send them when I get there. Okay. It's fine. Okay. Is anyone not ready? One and two, one gas biology impact. Our evidence indicates our evidence is specific to aquatic biology, local ecosystems in the U.S. cascade collapse and spillover globally. No adaptation does not solve. The plan is an adaptation. No other sex regulations can solve 1C. No, all causes are RF uniqueness. 1C3. Yes, arsenic causes extinction. Our evidence identifies human evolution, guaranteeing the increasing exponential risk. 1C4. No, COVID does not. No, COVID does not increase arsenic emissions. Specifically, our evidence is hyper specific to coal ash. 1C. No, 1C5. Yes, impact impact of food wars. Our evidence indicates that fish wars cause escalating pressures between great powers, causes joint and extinction, causes diversionary pressures. 1C5. Yes, fish. No, overfishing is not an alt cause. The things like coal ash pollutants into the Gulf of Mexico are critical because of things like U.S. exports. The second advantage, no, it does not only regulate coal ash. Our evidence indicates that it sets a precedent over containers, containers broadly, and clarifies the CW, which is a key internal link to agriculture over fears of agriculture over regulation. 1C2. Yes, would impact the diversionary pressures cause existing hotspots to escalate. Crib and indicates that it would lower the risk of user elusive pressures, which guarantee extinction. The turn is wrong. Crib says it causes diversionary pressure and great power war in hotspots, and says it increases inequality both through war and price increases, spending deficit per person increase. No internal link to poverty impact. Evidence says populist nationalism pre-existing foreign policy, which either means it's inevitable or status quo intervention solves. Regardless, the cards from 2014 doesn't assume status quo. The status quo escalation means the case is true. 1C6. Yes, disease impact. Disease impact. Our evidence indicates human gut microbiome nodia causing issues in the status quo. Transportation prevents. The transportation guarantees that no. The last argument lacks a warrant, but regardless, solvency no sign advantage. One, the protection. One, we meet the plan includes the protection of waters from coal ash, includes permitting regimes. Insert 1AC Hall. 2, we meet plan 6 in the vacuum. Most objective. The Colangelo evidence does not say it has to happen under the CBA, but obviously it doesn't. 1C evidence present means associated with HG10 associated with people of your relation for preferred a predictability intensify in the context of protection of water resources and peer reviewed. We just meet their interpretation. New apps, good strategic thinking, innovation. The strategic thinking, your long innovation, test debaters, not coaches. The counterplan 1, Jupiter shows the unprecedented momentum. 2, to the counterplan. 3, to the plan through the counterplan's amendment when it's ratified, because the delay solves net benefit and links to the benefit doesn't solve certainty. And also, no to the competition protocol Congress has a particular price and measure competition finances delegates could only be fixed by Congress. At Congress, Concom that's unfair, no suitable is not predictable because it's never happened. They get states that don't make a fiat change to federal law. States counterplan 1, Jupiter shows willing to benefit. 2, the counterplan monthly textual and functional benefit, else was the resolution fails. 1, NEPA regulations, updated regulations, locks in federal preemption, state enforcement fails. B, modeling follow on is key to prevent global coal ash pollution. Only EPA and Washington leadership is perceived. That's landing statutory clarification. CW is a federal statute. Only SCOTUS ruling sets precedent to clarify pointers, not process. Arbitrariness, space safety, moose DF never happened. Unpredictable. They get developed, not uniform. Compounds must have a solved scatter for every plan. Lake ice predictability allows us to know which mandates kitty clash. New one error answers are justified incentives. Counterplan 1, do with not. This shows their links. 2, to the counterplan 3 doesn't solve statutory clarification. SCOTUS ruling is key to prevent lower court disputes. Incentives fail, have been tried before. We get new answers when there's a full argument. Condos back as it's someone tries to with some clash and says argue responsibility kicking in firms and not to yourselves. K1 with the implementation of the plan gets capital alternatives solve predictable risks has the preserving finishing clash do both plans is good EPA rule and local disputes are inevitable referring such as the environmental protection and short-term extinction and policy research about water is good after all the fair policy about the also not piece of laws are important to make a total visit and also probably shows the department is rule back important elements of water is a dynamic process ongoing negotiation between actors cut the art at actors extinction outweighs key to future value and most objective. The sunburst counterplan 1, do shields or links. 2, do the counterplan not functional and textually competitive. 3, do the plan through the process of the counterplan into the text below. 4, do the plan and the counterplan broadly. It solves that benefit non-intrinsic versus good to force FP wants and courts and do the plan doesn't solve because Jeffrey the just a misleading signals are short term followed by also to the in case for an example the even say the habeas for treatment facing the penalty delay sunburst takes an eternity because it has to go through the entire appellate process. Exponential impacts guarantees delay. Rule of law is thumb. Jenny Thomas had a shadow docket. Democracy for resilience solves nothing. Does mentioned this article which analyzes democracy away is not having democracy is not going to be usable for new studies not enough for the correlation between war at the dyadic the card at dyadic the guidance compound 1 2 shows going step 2 to the compound non-functional sex competitive 3 do the 3 permutation into the text below. Jacob sent out not intrinsic works to good to force FQ warrants fails. 100 of guidance documents and 1 sure to solve the net benefit and courts don't listen. That was above A is impossible to regulate. Special 19A tool humanity will think that increase work on the speed have the laws of accountability regulation on charge 30 states because of the under that's what I'm moving heavily A and policy corporation there's something process A creation on play structure of course impossible to regulate the card and no regulate and no impact checks solve it check solve it links this to the benefit the NEPA counter plan. 1, do bear shields links to the benefit. 2, do the counter plan not actually a function competitive. 3, do the plan and NEPA broadly into the text below. 4, do the plan over and the counter plan over water broadly into the text below. 5, do the plan and 5, do the NEPA and the plan regardless into the text below. 6, do the plan and rule that NEPA is substantive solves fails. The 1, court is key impact statements or executive action means it doesn't solve circuit splits, which is key into link to saturated clarification. And no solvency Gardner. There's one court action that the ability feature on water ruling specific rules based on hard to regulate the court ruling on the terminal back laws and right feature. No Congress president court 2, certainty adjust the spending NEPA causes fears of aggregate over-regulation, fails to clarify ambiguity and doesn't get modeled causes food wars and pollution dumping impacts. That's hard. 3, delay guarantees and impacts it exponentially growing rest. No net benefit doesn't say extinction and status quo solves it. Solves the impact that was on case project comments that compete opposite certainty and immediacy. Shift the debate away from core controversies. The EPA accounting mining thumbs up and 20 miles of the church of water protection of preserving is really my issue to show what the accessible complicated understanding of the acting burden on agencies. Mark the card at agencies and 1 Trump thumbs. The South on 21 initiative for this task force showing the ability to enforce the federal laws of your case of one laws resource having increased protection creating framework agreements. Cut the card at the agreements fiat solves they can just if access PFAS is high priority they can just stop doing that. PFAS no impact to it. Hardy 21 stages to spawn crossing saturated harbor setting on the swim cross within wide range high spring crossing line indicator for health. Cut the card at health all covers the international impacts. The Biscondia 1 confidence shot break well and survey the formation of AI is excellent and negative like the illustrations the next false memory using the best conferences we probably has been to be the international process not so much that like happen. I got my son on this cut the card as dimensional no link EPA strengthening coal ash regulations this year it displays the that's down and companies don't care and thumpers not to explain to the coal utilities because you have flexibility without background only what's called the plus or use know about the cold rules so yeah they know how they have to show the owner file and dollars from the cold that is because the market with EPA and where the closure the utilities close all that have been regulating for commercial for over 30 years and clarification term big CW is worse for industries curses agriculture not with the link that's all King and Heart the Biscon internal link is disproved by 08 and 07 and pivot thumbs the impact the court DA not unique and no link no has their 220 the majority of peers like the checking when it doesn't have a show to figure out how much focus on the major person action results what allergy and inferior argument will make to the decision for video the big auction rule that doesn't exist and the no link or internal link left like the 1210 Robert says not lost part and now it's the rest of the nation for the last thing of the according to the pattern of value institutional legitimacy the institutional legitimacy mark the hard legitimacy and Louisiana thumbs Rubin for some shout out so running the percent of the searches of the stories of the silver person of Louisiana river 17 international police he had initiated 50 years south shot from the shows nonsense South Pekin was a super notable Robertson on board cut the card and on board and no warming impacts sectors 21 job predictions are generated by models by highly complex systems with leadership for film they're all appears temple as below 2.5% so international all causes to warming they don't solve it I'm good
Percentile, forgot to say.
what
Mark the last part, percentile.
yeah sorry 2.5 percentile
Are you good for cross X?
yeah
First clarification question: what are reasons to reject the team?
Counter plans without a solvency advocate, conditionality, counter plans that compete off certainty and immediacy, and states counter plans and states counter plans that mechanistically fiat changes to federal law.
Is that it?
I think so, yeah.
Cool. Let's talk about the case page, the court's case. I'm confused how it spills over to EPA regulations. Does the court case establish that there are more permitting requirements for industries or like what's this?
Sorry, what are you talking about?
Yeah, the AF's plan text. What does it do about permitting? I guess I'm confused how it spills over to EPA enforcement.
The AF would include coal ash as a point source pollution, which in the status quo is not due to lower court uncertainty that allows the EPA to go forth and regulate those things.
So does the AF, why does the EPA listen to the court case if they're already resisting those regulations now?
What makes you think they're resisting those regulations now?
You just said that there's uncertainty over EPA enforcement. I guess I'm confused.
The uncertainty over EPA enforcement is they have adopted a 2015 rule to satiate to the lower court disputes. The uncertainty is revolving the lower court disputes in which different circuits, 6th, 4th, 5th, etc. have disagreed over.
The EPA adheres to this new decision?
What?
Does the plan just fiat the EPA adheres to this new decision?
I don't think we have to fiat that.
Why?
Why do we have to?
So
we want to claim that clarifying it as a point source pollutant would allow us to prevent the impacts and harms on cases.
Let's talk about the sunsets counter plan, the delay deficit. I guess I'm confused what the impact to delay is.
Or impacts like exponential, right? Things like biodiversity, arsenic.
And so what's the bring for biodiversity?
obviously I can't tell you a specific day, but sunsets would literally take decades upon decades, right? Because it'd have to go through the entire appellate court process again. We think that's sufficient enough reason for why the counterplan doesn't
The guidance counterplan,
solve sufficiently.
the guidance counterplan, why don't courts listen?
Why don't courts listen?
Yeah.
The 1NC evidence never indicates when the courts have listened to guidance issued by executive agencies. We've had comparative evidence.
So if courts, if
that
agencies
courts won't.
don't, I guess I'm confused why the app solves then if you just said that guidance like doesn't spill over to court agencies, why does it go the other way?
What that obviously is not the same thing,
Why
right?
not?
Because I can say that courts don't listen to executive agencies, but executive agencies obviously listen to the courts.
Okay, again, I think that's just like a claim without a.
That's just true
Sure.
and justified by cards I've read.
Let's talk about the NEPA counterplan. I don't think you read any cards. The NEPA counterplan, the Gardner
On
evidence.
the NEPA
no,
counterplan where we're
benefit.
currently going.
Why does SCOTUS strike down the NEPA expansion?
The Gardner evidence indicates that the court has been hesitant to give EPA or like executive agencies credence in terms of their administrative rules, means courts don't listen to any executive action.
I feel like, okay, that's fine, actually.
They're not even a
Last
part of the
question,
case. They would never
BizCon
listen to a
stuff.
NEPA
BizCon,
statement.
County Maui, how does the app resolve it?
What?
County Maui, how does the app resolve it?
Why does the app have to? The app would
You
also
don't resolve County Maui.
increase clarity within the CWA.
Open the chat. I don't.
Oh yeah, I don't either.
917. Stop for 3 minutes. Sorry, I'm trying to send it, but like the bottom part of my email is all blank. Okay. Should be sent. What are the order? It's gonna be judicial sunsets. The NEPA counter plan. Incentives. No new case in the order of advantage 1 and then advantage 2.
Can I get that one more time?
Yeah, for sure. The judicial sunsets. The NEPA counter plan. The incentives counter plan. Case in the order of advantage 1 and then advantage 2. Sorry, I lost my file. Okay,
Did you send it? Because I didn't get anything.
this should be sent. Okay, there's a storm in Austin right now, so the internet's like really, really slow, but it does say sent uploading attachments, ...
Are we trying to send it?
Yeah, I don't know if I saved it in the Dropbox, so I can check.
Yeah.
Also, if it's a problem with Wi-Fi, I don't know if Dropbox synced either.
Where is it? Would it be in here?
No,
Oh.
they just have to search all. 2NC versus Mamaroneck. Do you see it?
We debate a lot of the Marinix.
I know, this is the wrong Mamaroneck.
Yeah, it is.
None of them.
423.
That's from 2021.
That's 422. TSC round 4. Oh, this is.
I don't think that's
yeah,
right.
that's wrong.
It's updated is still working ... I'm gonna disconnect them.
Usually if you wait for the attachment to finish like attaching before you press the send button, it'll be faster.
Okay. Oh, there it goes. I think it just sent. Someone could double check that for me.
You're good.
Oh, that's good. Everyone else is good.
Well, I need to open it.
Yay.
Okay, I'm good.
All right, fantastic. The counterpoint solves all of the apathy after a judicial sunset. Our evidence indicates it's more politically popular because justices who are unsure about the app will be more amenable if sunset is passed. That solves antithesis indicates sunset that the Supreme Court level uphold constitutionality, revised rule of law prevents adversity from lashing out. That's the prior evidence. Is it from both severance and immediacy and certainty. The counterpoint includes a sunset provision that mandates a ruling only be binding for 25 years until it's revisited, which includes a possible determination. A should require certain immediacy. Need and I should express no obligation. Not synonymous. The court interpreted should as synonymous with must. Second, so result is the president has not issued something that the result there is severance is the voter for fairness education because it makes the app into a moving target that's impossible to refute. Fourth, and presume immediate implementation because the alternative is infinite abusive. Allows the JC to specify time frame moves, not just counterpoint competition, but every offensive argument because it can always specify the app is rolled back after a certain date. You know that benefit of the permanent impossible rule indefinitely, and also have a sense of provision. A new Q1 characterization of the perm justifies need to our answers. So say the counterpoint and severance. The counterpoint is not mandated. The plan happens. That was work that I did wrong. You can crossway the definitions here. Preservation is permanent. That's driven. And preserving is permanent protection of habitat resources and protection means preservation as column section. No date protection. The act protection of the state. protected services of voter cross flow that from above. The first permitted tax is the same thing as it's the same as the counterplan tax, which means the possible the answer to permitted the counterplan still applies because it covers the app. They said the second permutation for ensures that the counterplan never specifies the what happened over anything that is off the app. Second, no bright line to what limited intrusiveness is. Make the one area specify a bright line or a definition for it. It means to be limitedly intrusive. Third, textual intrusiveness is non-responsive. Words have no meaning if not in context, which means you should hold them to functionally intrusiveness. Functional competition counterplans only have to be functionally competitive versus net flex is key to test opportunity cost. The textual competition makes the plan not competitive and justifies where pig. Second is logic. The plan is a synopsis. The model encourages big plan writing and permute every kind of 100 skills fairness. And clash the Jacobi evidence first. The first courts have to do the plan. It's a question of throw back to the one is the time text specifies that the courts will do the judicial sunset no matter what, which means there's no impact to it. Second, it's also not in the context of judicial sunset. Just says broadly that court sends misleading signals or evidence indicates the court the counterplan will be more politically popular, solves any impact this may have. They said the app is time sensitive. There's no impact to delay. No part of the one is indicates time frame is key. Either way, reject the argument for vacancy to specify a quantitative time frame. Second, the counterplan will happen immediately. Just because of the sunset will happen. Just because of the sunset will happen immediately. Third, when Sam asked cross they specify that biodiversity was the reason why time frame is key. Obviously, there's no bright line to what degree we need to solve biodiversity or how fast we need to solve it. The internal net benefit of a rule of law prevents extinction as Institute for Environment and Energy and Environmental Research. 3. The repercussions of actions for states and non-state actions, individuals not combined in border electric greenhouse gas accumulation to flow or massacre university applicable expectation and particular norms. The rule of law rather than the rule of becomes the norm. Security is likely to be causality. They say democracy is resilient. No more for democracy is resilient. But our evidence indicates constitutionality is a much bigger internally because the U.S. because the U.S. domestic democracy spills over globally, which means the access a larger interlink to democracy. Collapse NEPA. I'll concede the permits to test the competition are already answered the delay deficit on the other counterplan. I'll just answer theory here. Interfunctional competition is better than a textual competition. Sunsets are good. Our interpretations to get process counterplans. Again, U.S. versus education, more real world justice is fight over effect and time frame decision. Second is best policy option test. A wider variety of solutions to the resolution, different ways to solve versus small incremental textual differences. Third is depth related, more about how counterplan functions. Second is ground A. Any textual competition will encourage bad plan writing. They will just make the text big enough to limit a textual competition. Second, any counterplan would be legit. You could just rephrase the plan text and it would compete the same way. Airneck on theory, app gets personalized speech and unlimited prep, not a voter. Reject the argument of the team. Incentives. Incentive-based water protection solve better rising demand for resources on the brink now, but supply side solutions miss the boat and fall into supply demand paradox. The counterplan is key to global efforts. The Eastern evidence frame the counterplan through sufficiency framing. The net benefit outweighs for any residual deficit. The 2AC did not make a coherent solvency deficit. They read the tagline. The tagline has zero warrants and no explanation why the incentives do not solve the app, and only positive incentive solves penalties toward backlash and circumvention. So no sit. Regulations suffer environmental efforts and the economy water and inadequate resources on force regulation effectively negate the benefit of creates an incentive to destroy species to remove the threat restriction penalties impact for environmental attitudes. For example, endangered species act incentive program that are large number of compliance. Even when regulation does not run a election assistant of government to real regulatory efforts and incentive-based water protection is key to incentive-based water approach is key to water protection. That's ISBN 20. Incentive-based water allocation ensures slow rise and dependence. The recent competition has increased some place solutions to the paradox of peace and supply encourages demand when these the same incentives key to global efforts. These specific areas where you should compare incentive-based water management, sustainable water use, designing and testing, and evaluating the impact of incentives. And the kind of plan solves best. Farmers respond better to incentives and to regulations. Since $1.05. Farmers respond better to economic incentives and regulations of government subsidy will enhance sustainability and intensive animal protection. They said perm do both lends to net benefit. The perm doesn't solve inclusion of incentives means there's no penalty for being out of compliance. It's also O2. How should exist regulator can observe the action of farmers and enforcement farmers or penalties on prohibitive farmers when the requirements of the design is flexible performance and the result is failed outcomes. They say perm the counterplan obviously severs the entirety of the counterplan is a completely different solvency mechanism. No part of the counterplan mandates water protection. They said conditionality countertip the negates infinite condo best new app that's best versus net flex offsets prominent app isolate, especially on this topic where everything is app grounded. You just has the app from multiple places to find the best strategy. Second is argument innovation condo as key to testing arguments. Other teams only generic so specific. Third is better for depth laws wider range of knowledge on the topic that's key to education. Fourth is real world policymakers search for this policy option fit speed and assessment time stress nothing about adequacy make them uniquely better. Check the argument off the team. They said dispel solves nothing. It's arbitrary. The definition shifts around. Second, they want to see if enforce terms by adding planks. Case. The contamination scenario first does not cause extinction. One see Crib says, quote, 1 in 6 people die every year. Certainly bad, but not an existential risk. Second, no extinction from arsenic. The top part of Vegas is citing other risks like nuclear war. The middle part is about environmental change is broadly not contextualized to arsenic. The bottom part says arsenic is bad, does not articulate a terminal impact and no impact. The probability is less than 1%, 0.1% air neck. Only we have evidence that cites data and estimates. Or evidence of you are rhetorically powerful, but doesn't have warrants for how and why chemical contamination event would happen. The Bowdy debate, no impact to Bowdy loss. As Hall said, empirics where we can adapt to change in the ecosystem and losses stay localized means no spillover or species filling for gaps in the food chain. Adaptation solves as peak modernization changes ecosystems more back into natural habits. They just assert adaptation does not solve no warrant for it. And it's supposed to solve global freshwater biology conservation and restoration happening in Australia 10. Conservation spend much time on identifying regional species richness of how many also not well know this is used to prioritize area for protection develop optimal networks protect areas ongoing attempt to map global freshwater hotspots rising issues protecting ecosystems paralyzed by a rapid rise in use knowledge to restore damage ecosystem restoration of freshwater ecosystem accelerated rehabilitation of the lakes are routinely successfully practiced stream and while restoration are widely practiced the marine ecosystem is resilient to everything. That's Neil 17. Researchers studied the lake Triassic extinction marine life did not, even though the last proportional killed off the warming of the planet caused by greenhouse gas was behind. The extinction of global oceans was manned by a stage of operation manned by a few species life underwater is incredibly resilient, capable of surviving even the worst times of environmental upheaval. Ocean ecosystems are resilient and can overcome mass extinction events. As Friedman told, many marine extinction intervals are much health of a diversity unscathed and extinction power can maybe transferred from one group to another. Even when the ecosystems are interacting with ecological diversification is common following mass extinction, radiation to involve movement to new environments and tropic growth as well as ecological replacement. No interlink to fisheries. Overfishing is a much larger issue. That's 1/3 of fish stocks are being overfished. It's the biggest cost of fishery sustainability. Our evidence is comparative and indicates that overfishing is the biggest cost and no resource source. That's Kristen. 15 is difficult to imagine China and the US and Russia will find themselves fighting over a previous unclaimed area of the world for the purpose of gaining monopoly of the control of resources economic development. So the last 150 years prior to make sure system of very powerful the ratio of value of innovation over the skill to overall outputs like natural resources shape on skill level has something greater. Mark the kind of favorite advantage too. The contamination scenario was answered above. The interlink is biodiversity, which was also answered above, and superbug impact is type that Tyson 12. If we stand probably more into the Middle Ages, the most interesting widespread pathogen maintained by the healthy like MPAs or MRSAs and immediate test solutions include treating infectious multiple antibiotics and the center sobriety to target specific therapies can be used. Stories about superbug or overblown causing unnecessary panic on people unlikely to get sick. Unsustainable fix now new drugs break down bacteria's protective barrier. That's Metro 14. Antibiotic resistant superbugs Achilles heals. A drug can be developed to stop bacteria building a protective barrier around the cells. All the animal stuff is just a biology impact, which is also answered above. Go back to the first advantage. No extinction for mooring. That's why power costs 12 degrees and takes way too long, and China's backing out. That's 1713. Projects already on the pipeline of loopholes and real policy means China is on track to add a 1 new coal-fired plant a week until 2020. China, the world's biggest emitter of greenhouse gases, and probably will try to make 20% of the energy renewable. Plant growth and coal power capacity. Some environmentalists question that goal. Specifically, ocean ecosystems have survived climatic disasters analogous to present disasters as Ocean U16. The basic structure of the ocean ecosystems remains stable despite extreme environmental change. Absolute abundance rose and fell in concert alongside climate change and global climate change. The structure of the ecosystem was resilient under climate change research. Religion, race, things in global climate analogous to represented those also the long-term structure of the marine community.
Cool. You good?
Yeah.
Jacob, do you want a marked copy?
Yeah, can I get a marked copy before cross?
Yeah, like I don't remember if I marked any cards.
There were cards on case that were marked.
Yeah, I'll just send you the version I'm reading from right now. Might take a little bit though. Wi-Fi is not ideal right now.
If we just know where the marks are, we can also just take those if it's going to take too long to email.
I have such bad memory. I'm so sorry. But I'm trying very, very hard to remember.
It was
Oh, the Christensen card, I marked it as a grader. And I'm pretty sure that's the only card I marked on case.
okay. All right, I just got it. You're good to start.
Greater. Okay, cool. You good?
Yep.
The sunsets counterplan. Let's talk about the process of the counterplan. What does it rule on in order to like enforce the system of sunsets?
What do you mean? What does it rule on?
Like what does the process of the counterplan look like?
Like what does the sunset look like?
Yes.
Yeah, so our 1 and C evidence indicates a sunset would like someone on the Supreme Court proposes that we would do a sunset over the app. Our evidence indicates this is more politically popular because justices are more amenable to changes when they think.
Is there an external net benefit?
Depends on the 1NR. I will not spoil what the 1NR will take for you.
Okay, that's fine.
Wait, hold on. Like, so can you just like tell us if there could be an external net benefit?
If
and
there
what
is an
that would
external
be?
net benefit, it will be court politics. Will defend that the counterplan is less politically toxic.
Okay.
All right, that's fine. The internal net benefit, the like all your evidence from 03 and 14, why isn't rule of law like I get that you're going to claim that the counterplan solves rule of law, but why don't status quo like disruptions of rule of law disprove the impact?
Yeah, so the Gentithis card, which is from 2014, isolates that constitutionality is the largest interlink to broader rule of law, which means you might be right that rule of law is thumped in the status quo, but we think that the counterplan would resolve that. Like the counterplan would solve rule of law.
So like 14, like to 8 years of rule of law violations, nothing happened, but the counterplan still gets to resolve that just because
I mean,
the counterplan
obviously
happens.
I can't isolate exactly when these impacts will happen. The prior evidence just indicates it's uniquely likely.
Right, I'm not asking like when the impact happens, but rather why haven't all violations in the past disproven the net benefit?
I'm confused about what you mean.
The delay net benefit, you fiat the counterplan. Why does fiat solve? The sunset still like the process of the sunset is not immediate, correct?
We compete off of like the sunsetting portion of it.
Right, and the sunsetting portion, we can agree like you can't fiat the process of the counterplan. in terms of like the time it takes for the sunset to come back up, right?
Yeah, I mean, the cash shell evidence indicates that it's likely to happen quickly. Either way, there's no bright
Does the
line.
counterplan rule on the app?
Like on the grounds of the app?
Just on the app, like,
Like it rules on the grounds of the app.
okay,
Like, it
that's
still
fine.
shifts it from point of solution to source code.
Sorry, I have a question. So is the way the counterplan is different from the AF? It rules on the AF the same way the AF does, but that decision could be reversed in the future.
That decision could be reversed in 25 years.
Okay, is
This
that
the
how
only interpretation of fiat. Otherwise, two ways can always specify that the plan is ruled back after a certain amount of time, which means you don't get access to any
I
discount.
disagree. Okay, right.
The incentives counterplan, two things. One, the Sims, like farmers, why do they care? Why do they think the incentives are in good faith if they don't think, if they are fearing overregulation now?
The incentives is the alternative to regulation. They think that incentives are better than regulation. Because
Right, but they fear overregulation due to an ambiguous CWA. Why do they think the
I'm
government is
confused why you
negotiating in
think
good
the
faith?
government giving them money would be perceived the same way as regulation, because those two seem
Because those fears of overregulation still exist. What prevents those fears?
incentives, it's not the same thing as regulation, though. Incentives would
Okay,
solve that
that's
fear of
fine.
regulation.
The webinar should be sent. Let me sit up. Wait, sorry. We usually use the headset, and so now I'm just used to putting it on.
Did I have the headset on? Too?
Did you?
I think I did.
The order is the guidance counterplan, the con-con counterplan, the parade of horribles to sad, states counterplan, the EPA trade-off to sad, the critique, advantage 2, the BizCon to sad. When everyone's good and has gotten it, I just give a thumbs up. Truth. Was that everyone? Did I miss it? It was everyone. That's my bad. Sorry. The guidance capital could see no impact of permutation. This test competition will go over theories for government on the team. Con same thing. Theories for government on the team could see the permutation test competition. Parade of horribles will concede no link and thumper and PC theories, and we're not going for it. Doesn't matter. The state's gonna play will concede. The permutation test competition will go for theories for government on the team. EPA trade off will concede no link. State solve no impact. We're not going for theories for government on the team. The critique same thing. Permutation do both will concede, and we're not going for theories for government on the team. Advantage 2. Food shortages don't cause war. 1, no causal evidence. Every author can establish a correlation, but bad government water shortages until military. There's no epistemological basis for causation. 2, only true for poor countries. Great powers have too much wealth, and food reserves and are deterred by nuclear weapons. 3, government responses solve reducing agriculture shares or blocking exports. All empirical government short is that. Whereas there get no impact to food. 11. Empirical studies do not support these arguments. Second, capital will have increased productivity. Increased versus marriage that seem to are long scenarios linked to water security with water in more in the Middle East. If our measures use this better, none of the various also do this water show that 80% is limited to better 2/3 available all cooperative scale. The perception of water drives cooperation. The water does not make sense to the line. Our resource solutions poverty outweighs the root cause. Their impacts reach 2 scenarios for war. 1 is nationalism. Poverty causes least trouble. Nationalism with divert the population away from the rest of the that creates hair trigger conflicts like any impacts and justifies war. 2, large poverty takes the common approval and resulting in diversion conflict and escalates. Independently, poverty outweighs nuclear war kills 18 million a year. I'm not going to read the high food prices reduce poverty. The answers they're internally deepens. They increase the profit margins of rural farmers. Rural workers get reliving wages first. External investment business also cause them to hire more labor to produce unemployment. That TDF studies are bad. They don't assume supply represents their wage adjusted horse. 14. Microeconomic methods suggest the high food price increase poverty. Microeconomic models suggest the word agricultural slices in response to concern to wage adjustment suggest the poor. Ultimately, high food price reduce international justice specifically test the relationship. We found a boy percent of the higher price reduce poverty and inequality. Crib is not about poverty. It just says broadly that war might happen. It doesn't actually do the work to explain to you the internal like when war happens. That goes to when I see cross section on answer this because we only recite this. We only have a specific scenario for rural farmers getting money. Yes, it's poverty. That was one of the impacts of the relevant. I read the stuff about BizCon. Environmental regulation got BizCon, economic collapse caused a nuclear war, knowing the regulating recovery guts determines credibility. That kind of outweighs versus time period. Any potential recovery is failing quickly collapses the international order for the perception of use weakness. 2 is valuing causes nuclear war extinction. That Lincoln and Turns case, 21. Dire qualification applying requirements to lead to overrunning Jesus by volunteer conservation, and we can regulate to the one uniqueness, but it's got high now. That's reduces all of their warrants to try then use my rose 58.5, which is growth. This easy and COVID restriction solve is hiring hiring is increased, which solves all their warrants. And consumer comments up now, yada 22. Consumer comments are in March, there's solid drop with the offset of consumer inflation into 107.2 far the highest inflation in 98 at labor market gains, especially back to the pre-pandemic levels. U.S. household discount is increasing now, but it's in we're talking 111. U.S. home economy increase modestly, but there are concerns on inflation, worker shortages, there are signs of supply bottlenecks are starting to ease within institute supply management, consumer manufacturers reporting prices so higher. Those economists federal reserve expect inflation will start to proportion of business placing to raise prices fell 5 points. The 2EC2 is no link. EPA portion doesn't dump since there. I mean, I've never since how it did explains how it didn't expand to CW to collapse. All of our evidence communicated off of CWA regulation force, which is the link there. How much to apply one by regulations are anticipated by opposition. Boom 1618. Upon by 50 years, attempts that his mission would counter August on environmental relations sites, so early on kind of these moves that lost to file meeting court was something to reach 2 consultation meetings planning and unexpected makes now for 21. Meeting with business leaders by discussing infrastructure minimum wages due to the reactions expected to move for submitting 3 sudden nature of plan back price late market 16. A common level should consider here's why kick or fraud consider influence now submitted because the common is higher factors if the administration expected they're rapid and expected and as policies in the state governments all the policy will need to be proper one water regulations underlying industry fights are top 3. Analysis of environmental regulation and the compliance cost of the secondary effects based on models are used in the cost of environmental regulation. There's what the sector of products of financial real estate, also 5% employment, 5.5% water regulations, add cost of companies that tech competitiveness, 12. Environmental regulations pose significant harm competitiveness regulations, so employment investment is slow employment investment productivity effects are being considered for plans of regulation of the country appear governments that acts of environmental regulation competitive optimal regulation trying to shoot minimize costs. 3 their answers don't account for business perception, new relationship confidence, ground 14. Policy reforms inevitably by the profit margin, reducing their incentive to invest in the government changes addressing the events of government seriously taking investor rates to implement investment crisis, the economic crisis, which factors political coalition, civil growth of the economy, different larger profit motive, confidence, business ownership, making investment decision long as investment decision rate prominently harmony, we wouldn't get the law of the class dimension. 2 easy 3 risk companies don't care. 1 evidence about coal utilities, not the businesses themselves doesn't. Assume margin only 2. Their evidence is the programs that are the numbers are not actually affected or just state level. Obviously, the federal regulations of the 1AC so states kind of plan means obviously they're not enforced to companies get around it. Obviously, federal regulations that's true the link. Then they can't thumb through the federal evidence above applies to reason why consultation things mean right now regulations are key to force clarification. 1 does this to the perception which is above 2 uncertainty doesn't damage growth regulation doesn't plan actually increases the prospect of regulation at Congress 11. It's on to deal with business would refer 0 probability rule, but which would take 50% or 100% business welcome to MLS because they don't have this not even for at least 2 years and perhaps forever. 3 regulation Jackson power industry minus 14. EPA rules have been complicated in operation of the power generation. EPA's mission to ignore foreseen environmental relation finery to clean water benefits everyone, but in most power industry will get the word to this by makes the day-to-day operating power plants more complex that the new regulations have the ability to jeopardize the bottoms of many plants. The 2AC56, which is economic growth numbers, will enter here. 1 US with 3 different powerhouse 17. Maintaining order following the US will be the most powerful country. From Iran, ISIS, China, Russia are actors counted with the for pro plans how the work not come out to working with the US. National security requires financial resources that the US is doing economic war. Ever since we had around most cities will all be economic growth and post-COVID economic rebound occurs geopolitical developments. Skip 20. The race about the beginning economic geopolitical conflict the first COVID-19 race to determine the US retaining leadership by the past recovery could determine the US solves could trigger escalating conflict the US regain leadership at the greening power bill being the first of the eight will be significant likely to be China.
Okay, 710.
Do y'all mind if I ask a question during prep? The counterplans, is BizCom net benefit to both counterplans or one counterplan?
It's not benefit to incentives.
Is it net benefit to sunbursts?
No.
Okay, cool.
Okay, 1:30. Cards should be sent and ready to sending some cards as well. Is everybody ready for an order when they get both docs? Yeah, okay. It's advantage 1, advantage 2, sunsets, sunbursts, whatever, incentives, BizCon. Anyone need that again? No, okay, let me just open my doc and I'll be good.
Can you give the order one more time?
Yeah, advantage 1, advantage 2, sunsets / sunbursts, incentives, BizCon.
I don't think I have the second doc yet either.
Okay. Open it as well. Cool.
Okay, I have it.
Let me just open it and I'll be good. Okay. Stop me if anybody's not ready. Yes, there's some impacts of chemical contamination. The curve evidence says that dumping is accelerating, which your evidence is assumed it collapses. The food changes, collapses biodiversity, and causes extinction. Are saying not going for the impact. There is an impact to biodiversity. Their adaptation warrants are wrong in this context because the impact is non-linear. Doesn't assume oceanic biodiversity because key the nursery species form the foundation for food chains. Our evidence says it's compounding and combines with other risks too. That's thing causes extinction. Restoration doesn't happen now. It's from 2010. Doesn't assume rollback of regulations. Now there's a job to environmental leakage impact, nuclear, and the waste impacts the cesium into the atmosphere, which causes extinction. No need to in our answers. The fisheries intact, not going for it, and we didn't read the warming impact advantage 2. There are super bugs. Our evidence described. Their evidence is only describing the bacteria that exist now. Our evidence says the new ones will emerge in livestock conditions. It's not. There's no medicines now because their evidence just says it could be developed. Not that it will be developed. Our evidence is predictive and says that it'll wipe it out. It'll wipe us out before we get to the chance to do that. The food war stuff. I'm conceding the 2 things. First is concede the third warrant. The one gives that government response is solved. There's no link to the food prices argument because it means intervention reduces it means that intervention increases the supply, which would reduce the cost. Also, you can see the no impact card. The warrant in the card is that food is adaptable now, so the app wouldn't necessarily lower. Prices regardless. The app outweighs because high food wars. Because high food wars cause crisis. The only warrant in their evidence for escalation is that tensions. The crib evidence. They didn't answer the warrant that says that those tensions are high now because of ethnic and territorial disputes. There's also a dropped insects impact routines that bees, birds, and earthworms cause all the cause extinction in the short term. The sunsets counterpoint. Judge Keek is bad. It forces right to answer 2 2 and R switch. There's a 2-error skew that always logics of achieving is bad. There's no explanation of what solved enough means. Permutation, the counter plan is to severance or reinject the argument, not the team. Permutation do both. The way they are explaining the counter plan is that it does the identical ruling to the app, and then it may roll back the ruling in the future. That isn't competitive because it is plan plus and does the app and then does another thing later, which means doing the app at the same time is not exclusive with doing that. It can't sever. Obviously, it's do both, and it shields any net benefit because it still does the sunburst in the future. They say they read the definitions of certainty. It's not certain Merriam-Webster, not result, consult, or immediate result to make the shot for reflection, or the show expressing that it's used to secondary records is not a given. There's two deficits. One is certainty or evidence says that the agriculture industry is uncertain of overregulation. Now the counterplan would give the possibility of rolling it back in the future, which makes those regulations uncertain and causes dumping to continue. To delay the insect evidence is specific and says extinction happens before. It says extinction happens before 2040, which is after the 25 years is over. The internal net benefit is ridiculous. Outweighs the apt. Every other rule of law violation has to. Every other rule of law violation outweighs. There's no reason why this one is key. The incentives counterplan crossed by Judge Key sufficient framing the permutation do the counterplan permutation do the both shields the link because it gives money to businesses while also regulating those businesses. If they're right that they would follow the regulations either way, then that's not a reason why it would be a link to BizCon, because the counterplan is also unannounced. The card doesn't apply. It doesn't matter. It's about other regulations. The coal ash regulations exist now. Will be on the BizCon. This there's two deficits. First, the 1 and C counterplan text says they only provide incentives to reduce the impact of coal ash. That is not what our entire app is about, which is about container the storage generally, which means they don't solve any of the agriculture stuff or any of the stuff about nuclear waste, which wasn't answered in the 2 and C. 2 is certainty. The 2EC argument is that the 2EC argument that agriculture industries are uncertain now was not substantially responded to, and means that even if the counterplan might give money to them, that's not a reason why it solves certainty, and means that they're still uncertain about regulations that could come in the future, which doesn't solve anything else. Read. No, BizCon. The app outweighs environmental collapse caused extinction in the short-term recovery is structural, and there's intervening actors that solve it. The insurance case arguments are non-unique and durable. The durable field has to solve them. The unique dissipate. This is a crush for the app. Only we are reading evidence from within the past 5 weeks, since that rebound effects from Omicron has caused supply to shank inflation. After probably 420 business report, pandemic inflation, business raw material labor, Russian faces bacon price, but also get your agricultural sale price of firms continue large uncertainty. Versions 422 inflation customer costs so these have cost 63 month of losses supplies for the past weeks and momentarily because very price and extension word raise interest rate federal master challenge inflation cost supply chain labor versus content and the business content growth is slow. Top E424 economic activity only grow 1%. Federal reserve 4.1 fair convert 22 and warp series and pay work probably pressure perception only still need now parents are price of Russia future press got a root in awakening, or the uniqueness proves that it's resilient. Their evidence doesn't assume long-term rebound effects, and you should prefer the recency that numbers debate. So many other coal regulations happen now that all outweigh the signal of the app. Will concede the argument that those regulations are anticipated or consulted now, which mitigates the link because it means that companies are expecting some coal regulations even if they don't know exactly which one. And it's sufficient to mitigate. The plan isn't sudden because of that the link debate proper. Their links are about water regulations generally, the sum total of them, not individual regulations. They have no evidence that's sufficient to collapse the regulations for all the other coal regulations matter more. Short than 22 APs working on host of regulation question to wait for regardless to go challenge with between regulation clean potential road tremendous economic pressure on the issue role the clean power will market air toxic and the standards mark the card and standards doesn't jack up power prices about other regulations. COVID disproves the impact we happen sooner.
2 minutes. Here. The order sunsets. Incentives. Is on. That's it. Is anybody not ready?
Give me 1 sec. The Jacob's 1 arrow kept cutting out for me, so let me just close some docs so that does not happen. Don't need the 1 AC anymore. Okay, I should be good. Thank you.
Everyone else is also good. Easy net ballot in a world that they've conceded our interpretation of fiat. I'll extend it at the top because it filters a permutation debate and the competition debate. Fiat has to be permanent, making sense as normal means justifies unpredictable 2AC offense where they can spike out of negative offense. I did too. We can always specify the FS rollback after a certain date. No bright line on how much 2A's can roll back. Text all neg offense since they can say perception links are thumped as a result of rollback. It's a voting issue. For fairness in education, system purposely gets out of defending the 1AC, which is the reason to reject the perm on face. Now, the 2A will go for permutation, do both. The interpretation of fiat applies here because it means you have to do permanent. The world of the permutation looks like the judiciary bring the agreeing to sunset every regulation, and that sunset never occurring since the app has to be permanent, which solves none of the internal benefit. The 1AC this evidence indicates the added clarity will enhance quote public accessibility and render law more predictable. The permutation obviously decks that perception of predictability and probably makes the internal benefit worse because it's the judiciary promising to sunset a regulation and then going back and not sunsetting the regulation, which means there's a higher chance of permutation. There's a higher chance of permutation decks the net benefit. Like I said, I'll explain that internal net benefit here. Antithesis indicates sunset the Supreme Court level upholds constitutionality. Or evidence is comparative and says constitutionality is the biggest interlink to rule of law, prevents adversities from launching out. That's the prior evidence. The O3 evidence written in the 2NC indicates that's the only thing keeping adversaries in check now. That's a short-term war impact, which definitely outweighs either way. I don't need to win a very large risk of the counterplan in a world where we were definitely winning. The deficits do not matter. Framing the issue, the debate should not come down to the entirety of the case versus the counterplan, but rather the entirety and internal net benefit of the counterplan versus a small risk of the solvency deficit, which should be the framing issue for the impact debate. They said Judge Cake is bad. It's just by conditionality. They can see that Netflix is good. Judge Cake is key to that because it doesn't force me to go. It doesn't force me to go for counterplans. I don't want to. This is sufficiency framing is bad. It's the only metric for determining whether or not something can solve. Solvency should be a sliding scale. Should not be yes, no. Otherwise, any solvency deficit I went to the app should be immediately no solvency. I mean, you should vote negative on presumption. I answered permutation. Do both from above. They said they'll do the definitions right here. Dictionary definitions are bad, which answers any definitions they read first. As predictability, tons of different dictionaries because it's impossible to know which one is the most predictable since they all define words slightly differently. That's especially true since we're debating about the context of the generic word like should means predictability is the only standard that matters. Legal context is key here. That's the only to ensure definitions in context are found. Our definition is much more predictable. It's about a SCOTUS ruler, which means should in the legal context means must. Even if the definitions are true in the abstract, ours in the context of policy. Second is flip-flop dictionary sent out revised books early yearly. Interest dictionaries can be predictable stasis point for offense. Now the perm did the counterpoint debate. This was a blip coming out of the 1 year. It could not be a full 5 minute 2 AR, but we meet their standard competition. The text of the counterpoint is distinct from the text of the app reference. The 1AC and 1AC plan text here. The 1AC text says quote ought to and quote is. We read definitions that indicate should as a mandatory duty. The counterplan is not because the counterplan is not because of the results and rollback, which proves we are actually competitive and the counterplan is also functionally competitive. No part of the app goes through the sunsetting process. That wouldn't be normal means. That was not the specification of the app and 1AC process. You should hold the line on U2AC extrapolation what the app would actually be because the 1AC process and the mandate of the plan is the crux of neg offense. The 1AC plan text does not specify sunsets, which means you should not give it to them as the explanation of the F and the 2AR. Counterplans need to be functionally competitive. That's best versus neg plus is to test opportunity cost. Second is logic. The model encourages vague plan writing and a race to the bottom to permit every common results and whole rest that can only defend a subset of the resolution because we can arbitrarily shift the definition of the plan the plan text independently of the conceded neg plus on condo, which means they cannot go for their interms because they have conceded their interm. Essentially limits out all process counterplans because permanent counterplan is killer. That destroys neg plus because this is the water topic where there's no unifying neg ground. Counterplans have to be able to compete off of process. Now the deficits. The first deficit is certainty. No explanation of what the certainty deficit means, but our evidence is better. The interlink evidence indicates that this is better for public perception because regulations uphold for the indefinite future is more destabilizing for businesses because these regulations could be done in future years. The second, there's no impact to uncertainty. The evidence is not in the context of short-term uncertainty. The counterplan happens at the same time as the app. We just compete off of the sunsetting process, which means there's no reason the immediate certainty of the app is distinct. Third is a question of perception. Obviously, companies don't know durability is real, which means they perceive that the app could be rolled back as well. They said delay. There's no bright line to delay. frame. Usually the 1A did not specify a quantitative time frame in which something is fast enough. You should hold the line here because toys always have a competitive incentive that the counterplan does not have a quote fast enough. 1A are not specifying that how fast the counterplan should be means there's no impact to it. Second, there's also no impact. None of the scenarios are time frame specific. The biodiversity scenario obviously does not have a tipping point that doesn't happen for the next 20 years, which means there's no reason that the counterplan has to happen fast. Third, the counterplan happens at the same time as the YAP is immediate. It's only a question of how much it's only a question of how much it's sensitive. I'll go to the Visconti side. I'll concede that there's no link. We're not going for it, or the counterplan links back, which means they don't get access to any links from offense you have here. Case is irrelevant because it's only a question of the counterplan solves. Go back to the counterplan. The F inevitably has a strategic advantage. They have infinite prep and was only focusing on defending the plan text on permitted counterplan, which means they have extended knowledge of plan mechanisms and advantages. The NEC cannot match that standard of advocacy, which means their interpret is inevitably skews debate towards the app. Also, companies don't know that fiat is real, which means there's no impact to certainty because they think the app could also be rolled back. Judicial sunsets, it's much better because it says the app will not, well, the counterplan will not be rolled back until at least 25 years, which means in the short term, there's certainty, which is better because all of the impacts are about short-term certainty, not about certainty 25 years in the future.
$130. Cool. Case counterplan. We're waiting on Kelly. Kelly's here. Truth. Truth. Okay. Anyone not ready? Large risk of case outweighs a very mitigated net benefit. Livestock-induced superbugs are more likely to cause extinction now due to how phylogenetically connected they are to humans, which is our 1AC who had evidence indicates that these livestock pollutants are happening now, which cause decrease in insect populations in the status quo. You can see the 1AC card, the 1AC card that's comparative and says that these reductions would cause a matter of human extinction within months. So it's tried to the affirmative time frame outweighs you should vote after live another day. Intervening actors can solve their impact, especially things like rule of law, which are institutional, and allies can check that, but nothing you cannot negotiate with little mosquitoes, which otherwise guarantee human extinction. The counterplan go there now. At the top, they've conceded the defense to the net benefit. So any risk of case not weighs the 1 AR. It extends the Tracy arguments that past rule of law violation should definitely thump the impact. All of their evidence from 14 and 03, multiple other events have occurred that disprove the impact, that disprove the terminal impact of any short-term war or escalation. One is Ginny Thomas. The interconnection with Scalia disproves rule of law, cost massive critication, thumbs critiques, thumbs perception. 2 is the shadow docket, perceived as a undermining of rule of law. And 3 is 4 years of Donald Trump that postdates their evidence and wrecks constitutionality, that their evidence does not assume disproves any the potential for the rule of law impact. First argument I'm going to go for is the certainty and delay deficit. These are sort of intertwined. Our argument as present in the 1AC is that CWA, lack of CWA clarity and lower court disputes deck agricultural certainty, which decks their ability to produce and incentivizes them to increase livestock pollution because of decreased sustainability methods. The counterplan, as described, would have the plan and then leave the decision for the plan unknown for 25 years. Even if they do not perceive fiat, they perceive that literal ruling of the counterplan, and now companies do not know if these regs are going to come back, or and continue to fear these regulations, which cause increased livestock pollution in the status quo. They do not solve any short-term certainty because the signal of the counterplan is sent as being uncertain for 25 years. It's analogous to the status quo because these lower court disputes exist in the status quo. Next is the delay deficit. They do not solve it because these regulations exist for 25 years, which means these agricultural practices continue for 25 years because they fundamentally fear these regulations, which causes human extinction in a matter of months. Yes, there was a time frame for that. It's in the 1AC evidence and was extended in the 1 AR, which means we have an impact of the deficit that goes unanswered. Next is the permutation. Do both. You can do the plan, and then have the counterplan be ruled on now, and then the sunset be brought up later again in 25 years. There's no reason why that violates any of their theory, but our counter definitions prove that their interpretation of fiat is broken, that the AF is permanent, but that doesn't mean that the fiat of the counterplan has to be re-fiat a permanent ruling, but the negative fiats that the ruling could be rolled back. Anything else makes counterplans that roll back the AF tomorrow completely competitive, which deletes any deficit. That's bad for debate because it discourages negative argumentation and this assumes any and all affirmative offense because there's no deficit to doing the AF tomorrow. So it causes infinite politics debate where we do the plan after the bill passes, which is net worse for debate, makes being affirmative and negative impossible because it incentivizes affirmatives to find niche arguments that are that negatives cannot rejoin to. The only answer for the 1 AR cards was dictionary definitions bad. One, debatability outweighs it guides predictability because an undebatable topic is not predictable. No reason why dictionary definitions are bad. They're common use, which means it's more perceived. No reason why legal definitions are easier to access, especially when competing legal interpretations subsume definitions. No reason why predictability matters. We've conceded that they get textual competition, which solves negative flexibility. Condo solves sufficient negative flexibility. So
Does someone know what time that happened?
It's insufficient for insects.
Hey, you need to go back to 50 seconds.
When do I have to go back?
I had 49 or 50, like right in 49, you can say.
Okay.
The last words I heard were condo solves neg flex.
Okay. I think I know where that is. 50 seconds after condo solves neg flex. Okay. Was that back here? No. We're good. Anyone not ready? Condos also sufficient negative flexibility, so you should err towards affirmative interpretations. They make the debate topic, they make the topic on untenable burden to be affirmative. Next is sort of legal definitions predictable. I'm not sure if you heard this, but competing legal interpretations means that they're not predictable. Dictionary definitions are more resolute. They're not consistently updated. What? Predictability does not matter. I thought I said that before I cut out, but debatability matters more because it guides predictability. Regardless, it does not matter, because if we win a risk that the permutation solves, then you should vote affirmative, because we're winning a large risk of the certainty deficit, because companies and agriculture companies perceive the counterplan signal to be, we don't know what we're doing until 25 years, which forces continued pollution and causes superbugs, which guarantees extinction in literally before 2023.
Good debate, y'all.
Good debate.
Debate.
Okay, do we have everyone? Congratulations to both teams to making it to the octas of the TOC. This was a fantastic debate. The decision is a 3-0 for the affirmative. I can go. So I voted AF. I think the short of it is basically, I think the risk of a certainty deficit outweighs the rule of law net benefit. I think there's a very low risk of the net benefit. The defense extended to the 1AR was short, but definitely present. And the 2AR was a consistent extrapolation of an argument that was in the debate from the 2AC, that one instance of a process like the counterplan cannot compensate for the multitude of factors that go into decrease US commitment to rule of law broadly. They're isolating a couple of specific examples of those thumpers. And I think that generally is also an embedded no spillover argument that undermines the internal net benefit, internal link, and also just needed, I think, a more explicit 2NR response to elevate the risk of the net benefit. But given that, basically, I spent the rest of the time evaluating whether there is a risk of the certainty deficit, and more specifically, is certainty critical to the impact scenario the AF goes for, and is the counterplan unable to solve for that lack of business clarity? On the first point, I conclude yes. I think the AF is advancing a conceded scenario about why establishing a clear and unmistakable line between point and non-point pollution is necessary to hedge back against reluctance to invest in livestock waste recycling for fear of incurring liability under the CWA. And there's a pretty big superbugs impact attached to that. So the remaining out for the neg is like whether the counterplan solves certainty. So if like it solves it better, and I conclude the perm severance, there's potentially a world in which I vote neg on just like linear risk of counterplan solving certainty better. But the problem is, don't think the evidence set you're reading lines up with the 2NR debating and spin as to why the line drawn by a judicial sunset would be net more certain and perceptually codified than the plan. A lot of the 2NR debating seems to assume a world in which the plan is like impermanent executive regulation that could be rolled back, rather than the only difference between the plan and the counterplan being the 25-year period after which the court can roll back the plan. I think the 1C Ginthus card discusses the need for the court to establish a particular policy or statutory interpretation remaining on the books for a set period of time. I don't know why that needs to be 25 years or why an expiration date at all is critical to send a signal of legal clarity. So I think there's a relatively low risk of the deficit, given that the counterplan's implementation is at least identical to the plan for the next 25 years, with the possibility that agriculture businesses begin to fear a change in the law, especially closer to the date of the sunset, and retract their investments accordingly outweighs heavily mitigating the benefit.
I don't have a lot to add to that. I voted on similar business, didn't reach the question of the permutation. To me, yeah, I'm not really going to rehash because my assessment of the substance was pretty much identical to that. I think something that would have made a really big difference in terms of deciding in either direction would have been just like better characterization of the internal link, both to what the net benefit is, like what exactly are the mechanics of how the counterplan resolves the rule of law, and what exactly are the mechanics of how certainty implicates kind of agricultural investments. Like, I think that the investment story is supported by the evidence, but like definitely the place where I came the closest to voting neg on the question of just like the counterplan solves just as well is like, man, is the 1AR and 2AR explanation really, really light. And I'm not even sure that the investment story, like the word investment, I don't think appears in every speech even. So just like a coherent thing that's like, it's a lot of money. People need to be really, really confident that the regulatory regime is not going to change before they commit to investing it. They're doing like a risk comparison where like the higher the chance that this gets revoked, the higher the chance that this money gets like lit on fire. It would trade off with something else, like just like a paragraph at some point where you kind of connect all of the uncertainty business to like why it actually implicates investment decisions, and why that's important for the terminal impact, right? Like what is the actual investment that is required to solve the terminal impact? I'm not totally positive about that. So just like a little bit more explanation on that front, and then just explanation of like internal link to that benefit on both sides. Like, why does the neg think that the sunset counterplan resolves the rule of law? Obviously that's important given that, you know, I'm basically zeroing the net benefit based on all causes, but like also since you're going for all causes, you also want to characterize what the neg's internal link to the net benefit is, to try to kind of spin it in the most unfavorable light that you can and take advantage of the fact that they're not doing that themselves. But yeah, I basically agree. Basically no net benefit, risk of certainty deficit.
Yeah, I basically voted the same way. I think something that would benefit the neg a lot is just like an explanation of what the counterplan does, both like on the perm and like the differential between like the counterplan and the plan, and also just like the internal link to what certainty is, because I was left kind of having to read through the evidence and like try to piece together how you access like a certain signal. And also, again, similarly, like how you overcome the alt causes. Like I understand this was like really light, both in the 2AC and in the 1AR. And I think personally, I wish the 2AC read like a card on this instead of impact D to democracy. But I think that, yeah, that would have benefited you a lot. But I voted the exact same way on the certainty stuff.
Yeah, all of those RFPs make a lot of sense to me. Do you think a better 2NR would have just spent more time on the deficit, or was it a question of like evidence quality?
I think probably more time on the deficit. The 2NR was kind of weird. I thought you were answering arguments that the 1AR didn't make. So I don't think they extended perm to the counter plan. Like they just said, we're not going for it. Like severance isn't a reason to reject the team. And you spent like a lot of time, not a lot of time, but you could have like, you know, gotten rid of that. And I also think maybe like the dictionary definition stuff was kind of silly. You probably could have gotten rid of that and like spent more time on the deficit.
Yeah. I mean, biggest fear with a sunset counterplan is always perm the counterplan, so I tend to answer it, but like I understand what you're talking about. The answer to the delay deficit or the certainty deficit, and I understand that this wasn't fleshed out a lot in the 2NR, but it was like their internal link to certainty is short-term collapse. Right? They don't have an internal link to certainty 25 years in the future. So even if the counterplan is rolled back in 25 years, there's no impact to that delay because none of their evidence is about impacts 25 years from now. Do you think that like makes sense as an answer to certainty or delay?
I think it makes some sense. You would want to explain why short-term investments are not implicated by long-term uncertainty. Basically, like maybe the investments are like they have to be redone periodically regardless. So the prospect of rollback in 25 years wouldn't implicate what you do now because you would have to reinvest that money. Like if the question is like buying a bunch of new pesticides or something like that, and that's the way that they solve their terminal impact, then it seems like pesticides are a thing you have to rebuy. So like why a thing that changes in a while would change what you do now. Those calculations might be different. I think that was weird about the delay debating. And I have in my head what I think a sunset counterplan 2NR is supposed to sound like. And to me, you're supposed to say like doesn't get rolled back. Like the thing that happens, it's like the prospect of it being rolled back is why it competes in 25 years. But like the thing that would actually happen is it would not get rolled back. But a weird aspect of this 2NR that I guess I didn't go into, and this happened at multiple points in the debate where like you were saying sentences that were making it sound like you were arguing that it actually would get canceled in 25 years. So that was also kind of weird, neither really here nor there, because I wasn't confident enough that was in fact what you were saying to just like amplify, like use that to amplify their deficit. But that's just like another place where you would want the explanation to be a little bit tighter. And then the delay business, it seemed to me like the 2AC thought that this was something else. And the delay argument that they were making is that the ruling would not happen right away, which does, if I understand what you were trying to say, is not true, because the counterplan does do the plan right away. It just maybe cancels it. So the way that the 2AC talked about delay does not really make any sense at all. So possibly you were confusing your explanation a little bit because you were trying to overcompensate for what you thought was a delay deficit that made sense. I don't really know, but I think it would have been cleaner to just be like, it definitely does the plan. The plan definitely sticks around for a while. The court can always review it. So like the same arguments you were making about how perception links just as much to them. Yeah.
The first part about the certainty stuff, I think a better answer that the 2NR could have said was like, investors also don't know durable fiat is there, which means in the short term, they're worried the app might get rolled back. The counterplan sets a definitive date where justices can go back and review it. So like there is certainty that the app will be held up for 25 years. There's no certainty just in the world of the app that wouldn't get rolled back immediately after the ruling happens. Does that make sense as an answer to certainty?
Well, you did say the first part of that, and I did get that. The second part of that is interesting. And I have read cards that say that just like giving a definitive date creates confidence that it won't be repealed before that date. But that part, I felt like you were weaker on.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
That's all we have. Thank y'all so much. And good luck, Marinik.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A great round.
Good luck.